What would you do if the family you secretly supported for years accused you of stealing from them? Rebecca Martinez thought she knew the answer to sacrifice. For 3 years, she'd quietly funneled over $370,000 of her own money to keep her family afloat, paying their mortgage, her sister's college tuition, and their entire lifestyle, all while living in a modest apartment and watching her own savings disappear. Her parents believed she was just helping out a little. Her 21-year-old sister Olivia had no idea that every designer outfit, every spring break trip, even the $8,000 diamond necklace around her neck, all of it was funded by Rebecca's silent sacrifice. Then the necklace went missing. Within hours, Rebecca found herself accused of theft, cast out by her own family, and facing an ultimatum from her father: confess what you did or don't come back. But the real shock wasn't the accusation, it was discovering who was really behind it all. This is the story of what happens when unconditional love meets calculated betrayal, and how sometimes the most loving thing you can do is learn to say no to the people you do anything for. Because family isn't supposed to destroy you to save themselves. Prepare for a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about family loyalty, financial boundaries, and the true cost of being the responsible one. The phone rang at 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, jolting me awake. I fumbled for my cell, seeing First National Bank on the caller ID. My stomach immediately noted this wasn't about my account. Miss Martinez, this is regarding the mortgage for 42 Maple Street. We haven't received this month's payment, and the account is showing late fees. Neto, I'll transfer the funds today, I said automatically, already reaching for my laptop. Another ticket due $200 from my checking account to keep my parents' house from foreclosure. As I authorized the payment, I stared at my dwindling balance and wondered, not for the first time, how I'd become the family's silent financial lifeline. My name is Rebecca Martinez, and at 28, I'm a senior software developer making six figures at a growing tech company. I should be building my own wealth, maybe buying a house, maximizing my retirement contributions. Instead, I've spent the last 3 years quietly funding my family's entire lifestyle while they remain blissfully unaware of the true extent of my sacrifice. It started during the 2008 recession when I was still in college. Dad's construction company, once employing 15 people, crumbled when major clients went bankrupt, owing him hundreds of thousands. Within 18 months, he'd laid off everyone and filed for bankruptcy himself. The shame nearly broke him. Mom's rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis that same year brought crushing medical bills despite insurance. They remortgaged the house twice just to survive. By the time I graduated in 2018, they were drowning financially, though they desperately tried hiding it from my sister Olivia and me. The difference was, I noticed. Olivia, 7 years younger, remained sheltered in her bubble of new clothes, latest iPhones, and the car they bought her for her 16th birthday, while I used textbooks and worked part-time jobs. She continued living as if nothing had changed. I discovered the depth of their crisis 3 years ago during a casual visit. While Mom and Olivia were shopping, I overheard Dad pleading with the mortgage company for an extension. When I found him afterward, sitting in his old pickup truck with his head in his hands, crying silently, everything changed. That night, I offered to help temporarily with some bills. Dad reluctantly agreed, but with conditions Olivia must never know, and they'd pretend it was just minor assistance, maybe a few hundred here and there. I went along with this fiction, telling them I was contributing a little extra when the reality was far different. What started as some bills quickly expanded. Within 6 months, I was covering their entire mortgage, all utilities, property taxes, and most of Mom's medical expenses. When Olivia started at an expensive private university, I took on her full tuition as well. All told, I was contributing over $70,000 annually, nearly two-thirds of my take-home pay. The arrangement worked because everyone wanted to believe the lie. Dad could maintain his pride by thinking his daughter was just helping out a bit. Mom could pretend their financial struggles weren't that severe. And Olivia could continue her carefree existence, posting Instagram photos of spring break trips and shopping sprees unknowingly funded by my sacrifice. I told myself I didn't mind. Seeing my family happy, stable, and together felt worth the personal cost. I lived in a modest apartment 20 minutes away, visited twice weekly with extra groceries, helped with house repairs on weekends, and watched as my savings account slowly emptied while my family's standard of living remained intact. 2 months ago, Olivia turned 21. For weeks, she'd been dropping hints about a white gold and diamond necklace she'd seen downtown, an investment piece worth $8,000 that she claimed she'd keep forever and maybe pass down someday. Mom looked physically ill when Olivia showed her the price tag over dinner. Dad's jaw tightened, but he promised they'd figure something out. I knew exactly what that meant. Sure enough, Dad called the next day. Rebecca, I hate to ask, but could you maybe loan us some money for Olivia's birthday gift? It's important to her, and I transferred the funds that afternoon, knowing it wasn't a loan any more than the mortgage payments or tuition fees had been. A week later, I sat at Olivia's birthday dinner, taking photos as Dad fastened the necklace around her neck. You're the best parents ever, she squealed, admiring her reflection in her phone camera. I don't know anyone whose parents would get them something this amazing. I smiled and continued photographing the moment, ignoring the familiar ache in my chest. Part of me hoped that someday they'd acknowledge what I'd done, that my sacrifices would eventually be recognized and appreciated. That faith kept me going even as my financial future grew increasingly uncertain. While Olivia's social media filled with photos of the necklace at parties and dinners, I never imagined it would become the catalyst for destroying the family I'd sacrificed so much to preserve. Sunday dinners at my parents' house were sacred tradition, no matter how busy our weeks got. We all gathered at 6 sharp. Mom would cook something special, Dad would open wine, and for a few hours we could pretend we were still the stable, happy family we'd once been. This particular Sunday started normally. I arrived early to help Mom prepare her specialty chicken enchiladas, while Dad and Olivia watched basketball in the living room. Everything felt routine until halfway through dinner when Olivia suddenly put down her fork. Has anyone seen my necklace? She asked, her hand instinctively touching her bare throat. The diamond one from my birthday. I was going to wear it tonight but couldn't find it. Did you check your dresser? Mom suggested. Sometimes you leave things there when you're in a hurry. Olivia shook her head firmly. I always keep it in the blue velvet box. It's too valuable to leave out. We spent the next hour searching. I helped Olivia check every drawer, surface, and hiding spot in her room. The more we looked without success, the more agitated she became, and the more I noticed her eyes following me whenever I entered a room. When I offered to check the laundry room, she quickly said she'd already looked there, though I knew she hadn't. Small moments of tension built like static electricity before a storm. Back at the dining table with cold enchiladas, Olivia's demeanor had shifted completely. You were in my room earlier today, weren't you, Rebecca? She asked, her voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. I paused mid-bite, confused. What? No. I came straight to the kitchen when I arrived. I thought I saw you coming out when I was heading upstairs. I went up to use the bathroom once, but I didn't go in your room. I explained, increasingly uncomfortable with her tone. Mom shifted in her seat. Dad glanced between us, his expression unreadable. That's strange, Olivia continued. Because my door was open when I got back upstairs, and I always close it. The implication hung heavy in the air. No one was directly accusing me, but the suggestion was clear enough. Olivia, I said carefully, if you're implying what I think you are, you're wrong. I had absolutely no reason to go into your room, and I definitely didn't take your necklace. She shrugged, but her eyes remained suspicious. I'm just trying to figure out what happened. It's an $8,000 necklace. It doesn't just disappear. Well, it didn't disappear into my pocket, I replied, trying to keep my voice level despite growing indignation. Dad cleared his throat. Rebecca, no one's accusing you of anything, but you have to admit it's a bit of a coincidence that the necklace goes missing on a day you visit. I stared at him, stunned. I visit twice a week, every week. Are you seriously suggesting I would steal from my own sister? The remainder of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. I drove home that night with a knot in my stomach, feeling like an outsider in my own family for the first time. The people I had sacrificed so much for had casually considered me capable of theft, and it hurt more than I wanted to admit. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with texts from Olivia. Just so you know, I've looked everywhere. It's definitely not in the house. Then, if you took it as some kind of joke, it's not funny anymore. Just give it back, and we can forget about it. I responded that I hadn't taken anything, but her replies became increasingly accusatory. By morning, it seemed she'd fully convinced herself I was a thief, and my parents weren't far behind. 3 days later, Aunt Patricia called requesting my presence at a family discussion that evening. Her tone suggested attendance wasn't optional if I wanted to remain part of the family. When I arrived at 7:30, the scene felt more like an intervention than a discussion. Dad and Mom sat on the couch. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert occupied armchairs, and Olivia perched on the piano bench with red eyes as if she'd been crying. My cousin Michael stood by the fireplace with crossed arms, having never particularly liked me. Rebecca, Dad began, we've asked you here because this situation has gone on long enough. The necklace is still missing, and all evidence points to you taking it. What evidence? I demanded. An empty box that anyone could have planted. Olivia spoke up, her voice trembling theatrically. I've been doing research, and the downtown pawn shop doesn't require ID for items under $10,000. They pay cash on the spot. The implication was clear, and I felt my face flush with anger. So now, I've not only stolen your necklace but pawned it. This is absurd. Is it? Dad challenged. You've been acting strange lately, distracted, checking your phone constantly, making excuses to leave early. I almost laughed at the bitter irony. The phone checking was managing their bills. The early departures were getting to my second job, which I'd taken to cover Olivia's upcoming study abroad program. The conversation continued with various family members, explaining why confession would be best for everyone. No one entertained the possibility of my innocence. They'd already decided my guilt and were simply waiting for acknowledgement. Michael thinks we should check your car, Dad announced suddenly. If you haven't pawned it yet, you might still have it there. Though I protested the ridiculousness, I handed over my keys, unwilling to appear uncooperative. We trooped outside where Dad unlocked my car and began searching. When he opened the trunk, several people gasped. There, partially visible under a grocery bag, was the distinctive blue velvet jewelry box. I stared in shock. I didn't put that there. Dad picked up the empty box, his expression mixing confirmation with disappointment. Still going to deny it. Someone planted that. I insisted desperately. I haven't even opened my trunk in days. Convenient excuse, Michael muttered. Dad slammed the trunk shut with finality. I think we've seen enough. Rebecca, I want you to leave now. Don't contact us until you're ready to admit what you did and make it right. As I gathered my things, defeated and devastated, Mom finally spoke. Just go. Rebecca, give us some time. Walking to my car, under their judgmental stares, I felt the betrayal cut deeper than any accusation. These people had chosen to believe the worst of me without hesitation, despite everything I'd done for them. 3 days of minimal family contact followed. Mom sent non-committal texts. Dad remained silent. And Olivia apparently shared her version with extended family. The isolation was devastating, but it also gave me time to think clearly about the inconsistencies in her story. Then Melissa called Olivia's former roommate who'd always been friendly with me. Rebecca, I overheard something yesterday that I think you should know. She said, I was at the coffee shop near campus when Olivia came in with friends. I was in a corner booth and they didn't see me. My heart began racing. What did you hear? She was bragging about how she'd gotten rid of you. Those were her exact words. I finally got rid of Rebecca. She was laughing, saying now her parents would stop comparing them to you all the time. The confirmation of my suspicions should have hurt, but instead it fueled my resolve. Did she mention the necklace? Yeah. She said something about hiding it and making it look like you took it. I couldn't hear everything, but it was definitely deliberate. After we hung up, I sat processing this final piece of evidence. My sister's betrayal had been completely intentional, a calculated move to remove me from the family picture. But I needed more proof before confronting anyone. That's when I remembered something odd from the night they'd accused me. While Olivia appeared distressed when my parents looked at her, I'd caught a different expression when their attention was elsewhere. Satisfaction quickly masked when she realized I was watching. I decided to observe more carefully. The next family gathering would be my opportunity to gather concrete evidence of what I increasingly suspected Olivia still had the necklace. I waited until Thursday afternoon when I knew Olivia would be alone, both parents at work. I drove to the house with a mixture of determination and dread, knowing this conversation would either clear my name or destroy our relationship forever. Olivia answered the door, looking surprised and slightly guilty. Rebecca, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, stepping inside without invitation. About your necklace. Her expression shifted to defensive. I don't know what you mean. You took it. Remember, I pulled out my phone, showing her Melissa's number. I know you still have it. Olivia, I know you planned this whole thing to frame me. For a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw fear in her eyes. And then she rallied. That's ridiculous. Why would I do that? Because you're jealous, I said quietly. Because you can't stand that Mom and Dad see me as the responsible one. Because you wanted them to think I wasn't perfect. Olivia's composure began cracking. You don't understand the pressure. What pressure? I interrupted. The pressure of having everything handed to you, of never having to work for anything. The pressure of living in your shadow. She exploded. Do you know what it's like having parents who constantly compare you to your perfect older sister? Why can't you be more like Rebecca? Rebecca would never do this. Rebecca always makes good choices. Her confession tumbled out in a rush. I just wanted them to see you weren't as perfect as they thought. I never meant for it to go this far. Show me the necklace, I demanded. After a long moment, she reached under her shirt collar and pulled out the diamond necklace, wearing it beneath her clothes. I was going to put it back, she said weakly. I just needed some time for everyone to realize you didn't actually take it. I stared at the necklace, the one I'd paid for, the one that had caused my exile from the family, now hanging around my sister's neck like a trophy of her successful manipulation. Do you have any idea what you've done? I asked, my voice shaking with rage. Do you know what I've sacrificed for this family? Before she could answer, I heard Dad's truck in the driveway. He was home early, and Mom's car pulled up right behind him. Olivia's eyes widened in panic. as we heard their voices approaching the front door. Please don't tell them, she whispered frantically. I'll fix this, I promise. But it was too late. The front door opened, and our parents walked into a scene that would change everything. What's going on here? Dad asked, immediately sensing the tension between us. Olivia instinctively tried to tuck the necklace back under her shirt, but the movement caught Mom's eye. Olivia, what's that around your neck? Mom asked slowly. The room fell silent. Olivia's face crumpled as she realized she'd been caught. With trembling hands, she pulled out the diamond necklace. I can explain, she began, but Dad's face had already gone white with understanding. You had it all along, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. You let us accuse Rebecca when you had it all along. I was going to put it back, Olivia cried. I just wanted her to know what it felt like to not be the favorite for once. Mom sank into a chair, her hand over her mouth. Oh my God, what have we done? I seized the moment to reveal everything. Before you decide how to handle this, there's something else you need to know. I pulled out my phone and began showing them bank statements. Do you want to know how you've been able to afford Olivia's tuition? How you've kept this house? How you've maintained your lifestyle for the past 3 years? I displayed transfer after transfer, mortgage payments, utility bills, medical expenses, tuition fees. The numbers grew larger and more devastating with each screen. This is impossible, Dad said, his voice hollow. We've been paying our own bills. No, you haven't, I replied firmly. I've been paying them, all of them, over $370,000 in the past 3 years. Your mortgage, your utilities, Mom's medical bills, Olivia's entire college education, all of it. The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia stared at the phone screen in shock, finally understanding the magnitude of what I'd been doing while she plotted to destroy my reputation. You knew I was helping, I continued, addressing my parents, but you told yourselves it was just minor assistance because that's what your pride needed to believe. Meanwhile, I've been sacrificing my entire financial future to keep this family afloat. Dad's legs seemed to give out as he slumped into his recliner. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell us? Because you didn't want to know. Because it was easier to pretend your successful daughter was just helping out a little than to admit you were completely dependent on her. Mom was crying now, quiet tears streaming down her face. Rebecca, we had no idea. And when your precious youngest daughter accused me of theft, none of you not one thought to consider that maybe, just maybe, the person who'd been supporting this family for years wasn't suddenly going to steal from it. Olivia tried to speak, but I wasn't finished. Do you know what hurts the most? It's not the lack of appreciation. It's not even the false accusation. It's that you were also ready to believe the worst of me after everything I've done, after all the proof of my character and loyalty. You chose to trust her word over my lifetime of actions. The room erupted in chaos. Dad began shouting at Olivia about lying and manipulation. Mom sobbed about how sorry she was. Olivia screamed that she never meant for it to go this far and that she was just tired of being compared to me. Through it all, I felt a strange calm descending. The truth was finally out. All of it. The financial exploitation, the emotional manipulation, the false accusations, everything was exposed in the harsh light of reality. I'm done, I said quietly. And the room fell silent. I'm done paying your bills. I'm done being taken for granted. I'm done sacrificing my future for people who think so little of me. Rebecca, please, Dad said, his voice breaking. We can fix this. How? I asked. How do you fix years of taking advantage of someone? How do you fix choosing to believe she was capable of theft? How do you fix destroying the trust of the person who's been keeping your entire world together? I looked around the room at their shocked, guilty faces. I've been enabling all of you. Dad, You never had to face the reality of your financial situation because I was there to bail you out. Mom, you could ignore how bad things were because the bills kept getting paid. And Olivia, you got to live in a fantasy where someone else funded your lifestyle while you planned my downfall. Standing up, I pulled my house key from my keychain and placed it on the coffee table. This ends now. I will not be paying any more bills. I will not be funding any more of Olivia's education. I will not be enabling this family's dysfunction for one more day. You can't just abandon us, Olivia said desperately. Watch me. I replied. You wanted to get rid of me. Olivia, congratulations. You got your wish. As I headed for the door, Dad called out, Rebecca, please, we'll make this right. I turned back one final time. When you're ready to apologize, really apologize. Not just because you need my money, call me. Until then, don't contact me. Any of you. I walked out of that house for what I knew might be the last time, leaving behind three people who were about to learn what independence actually cost. The immediate aftermath of cutting financial ties with my family was surprisingly liberating. Within weeks, I'd rebuilt my emergency savings, maximized my 401k contributions, and started researching investment properties. For the first time in years, my money was mine to control, but emotional recovery proved more complex. 2 months later, I started seeing Dr. Lena Thompson, a therapist specializing in family dynamics and boundary setting. What your family did, she told me during our first session, was a form of emotional and financial abuse. They exploited your generosity, took you for granted, and then discarded you based on false accusations. It's natural to feel grief, anger, and confusion. With Dr. Thompson's guidance, I began unpacking patterns established long before the necklace incident. How I'd been cast as the responsible caretaker from childhood. How my parents had subtly encouraged Olivia's dependence while expecting self-sufficiency from me. How I derived my sense of worth from being needed rather than valued for who I was. People who consistently put others' needs before their own often struggle with guilt when they start setting boundaries. She explained, remember that boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary for healthy relationships. Meanwhile, my family struggled with the reality of financial independence. Dad took on weekend work, Mom found a part-time job despite her health limitations, and they downsized to a smaller apartment. Olivia had to drop classes and work multiple jobs to fund her education. 3 months after our confrontation, extended family members began reaching out, having heard various versions of events. Most were shocked to learn about the financial arrangement and my sister's manipulation. Their support helped validate that my reaction hadn't been extreme or unfair. Around the same time, I received a letter from Olivia that felt different from her initial apology, where her first note had focused on justifications and excuses. This one demonstrated genuine self-reflection. I've been thinking about why I did what I did, she wrote. It wasn't just jealousy of how Mom and Dad treated you. It was knowing somewhere deep down that I didn't deserve the lifestyle I had, that I hadn't earned it the way you earned everything in your life. It was easier to tear you down than to build myself up. I'm trying to do the hard work now. I got a second job this semester. I'm actually going to all my classes. For the first time, I'm paying for things with money I earned myself. And it feels different better somehow. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to change. Her letter touched me more than I expected. Not enough to resume financial support, but enough to consider rebuilding some form of relationship. 4 months after the confrontation, I agreed to meet Mom for coffee. She looked tired, with new lines around her eyes, but also somehow lighter. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. There's something you should know, she began. Your father found all the payment records, every mortgage payment, every utility bill, every tuition installment. We calculated everything you've done for us over the years. She pulled out a handwritten letter. We owe you 300. We want to start paying you back, even if it takes the rest of our lives. I studied the letter, surprised by the gesture but clear about my position. I don't want repayment. Mom, I want acknowledgement and respect. You have both, she said firmly. What we did was unforgivable, but we're asking you to forgive us anyway, not because we deserve it, but because we love you and we want to earn back your trust. We talked for 2 hours, more honestly than we had in years. She explained that Dad's pride had prevented him from acknowledging their dependence, and that she'd been so focused on protecting Olivia's feelings that she'd ignored mine entirely. We enabled her jealousy, Mom admitted. We should have addressed her resentment instead of pretending everything was fine. 2 weeks later, Dad called with his own apology, awkward but seemingly genuine. I was wrong about everything, he said gruffly. Wrong about the necklace, wrong about taking your help for granted, wrong about how I treated you that night. I'm more sorry than I can say. Olivia was the last to reach out properly, requesting to meet in person after 6 months of silence. When we sat down at a neutral cafe, she looked different, thinner, more tired, but also more grounded somehow. I know my letter wasn't enough, she began. I wanted to tell you in person that I understand what I destroyed. It wasn't just about the necklace or getting you in trouble. I sabotaged the person who was sacrificing everything for our family. And I did it because I was too proud to admit I needed help becoming someone worth respecting. She pulled out her own bank statements. I want to show you something. These are my accounts now, money I've earned working 40 hours a week while taking classes. It's not much, but it's mine. And for the first time in my life, I'm proud of what I've accomplished instead of jealous of what others have done. Looking at her pay stubs and modest savings, I felt something shift. This wasn't the entitled young woman who'd orchestrated my downfall. This was someone who'd finally learned the value of earning her own way. I can't undo what I did, she continued, but I can promise you that person who was so jealous and manipulative, she's gone. I killed her when I realized what she'd cost me. 6 months after walking out of my family's life, I agreed to limited re-engagement with clear boundaries. I would help with Mom's medication costs, but payments would go directly to the pharmacy. We would meet monthly for dinner, but financial discussions were off limits unless someone specifically asked for advice. And most importantly, any disrespect or manipulation would result in immediate, permanent disconnection. Our first family dinner was awkward, with conversations stalling whenever we approached sensitive topics, but there was also a new authenticity to our interactions. Without the unspoken financial arrangement underlying everything, we were forced to relate to each other simply as people. Olivia spoke about her classes with genuine enthusiasm. It feels different when you're paying for it yourself, she admitted. I actually go to every lecture now. Dad discussed the community college courses he was taking to update his skills. Never too old to learn new tricks, he said. Should have done this years ago instead of just complaining about how the industry changed. Mom shared updates about her job at the local florist. It's not much money, but it feels good to contribute something. As I listened to them describe their new lives, I felt proud of their resilience and grateful for the painful lesson that had forced all of us to grow. The journey hasn't been easy. There have been setbacks, moments of resentment, and times when old patterns threatened to resurface. But gradually, we've built something more honest and sustainable than what we had before. Today, a year after the necklace incident, my family relationships are healthier than they've ever been. We support each other emotionally without the toxic financial dependence that had corrupted our dynamic. Olivia has earned my respect through her actions, not just her words. My parents have learned to appreciate my help without expecting it as their due. Most importantly, I've discovered that real love doesn't require endless sacrifice without acknowledgement. True family supports each other's growth, not each other's stagnation. And self-respect isn't selfish, it's the foundation upon which all healthy relationships must be built. The most valuable lesson I learned wasn't about money or boundaries, though both were important. It was that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to stop enabling destructive patterns, even when it means risking relationships you have sacrificed everything to preserve. Setting boundaries saved my family, it also saved me. And while the path to healing has been difficult, it's led us to a place of mutual respect and genuine appreciation that we never could have reached through the old patterns of exploitation and resentment. If you find yourself in a situation where your generosity is being taken for granted, where your sacrifices go unacknowledged, where your character is questioned despite your consistent actions, please know this: you deserve better. You deserve relationships that value you for who you are, not just what you provide. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to stop enabling others' dependence and start demanding the respect you've always deserved. Epilogue. 2 years have passed since I discovered the true cost of unconditional support. My family has thrived under the new dynamic of mutual respect and shared responsibility. Olivia graduated with honors, paying her own way through her final year. My parents have achieved financial stability through their combined efforts and careful budgeting. As for me, I've built a life based on healthy boundaries and genuine appreciation. I've made new friends who value my friendship, not my financial support. I've advanced in my career without the constant drain of supporting four adults. And I've learned that the most generous thing you can do for someone you love is to help them become self-sufficient, not to enable their dependence. The diamond necklace that started it all, Olivia sold it to help pay for her final semester, learning that the most valuable things in life can't be worn around your neck or bought with someone else's money. They have to be earned through your own effort, integrity, and growth. Sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to say no. Rebecca's story didn't end with a fairy tale reunion. It ended with something far more valuable: the hard-won knowledge that respect must be earned, not assumed, even within families. 2 years later, her sister Olivia works two jobs to pay her own tuition and finally understands the weight of responsibility. Her parents have learned to stand on their own feet, discovering dignity in independence they never knew they'd lost. And Rebecca, she built a life where her worth isn't measured by her bank account or her willingness to sacrifice everything for others' comfort. The $8,000 necklace that nearly destroyed everything, Olivia sold it to fund her final semester, learning that the most precious things can't be bought with someone else's money. The question isn't whether you should help family. The question is, when does helping become enabling? And when does love become exploitation? Rebecca found her answer when she discovered that real family doesn't punish you for their own failures. Real love doesn't demand endless sacrifice without acknowledgement. And sometimes, the most generous gift you can give someone is the chance to prove they can survive without you. Because boundaries aren't walls that keep love out, they're foundations that make real love possible. If this story resonated with you, ask yourself, are you being valued for who you are or just for what you provide? The answer might change your life. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't measured by their willingness to be used. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is stop enabling others' weakness and start honoring our own strength.